Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is day 25 of 25 Days of Christmas, and for this one we are taking mostly a break from horror so I can talk about my favorite Christmas specials and movies from any genre. So I am going to put some timestamps in the description for you guys, that way if there are certain genres that you're more interested or less interested in, you can kind of jump around a little bit. So first off, I do want to talk about some Christmas specials. The first one I want to talk about is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So I really do love most of the Rankin Bass specials. I think that they are just something super unique. We don't really see animation like this anymore. And this one I think is just really beautifully done. It has some amazing songs in here and just music in general. We have Burl Ives playing Sam the Snowman, and I think that he has a wonderful voice. Then my favorite song out of here, though, is There's Always Tomorrow that Clarice sings. I think that it is just such a beautiful song, and definitely the one that I think of the most from this one. The next one that I want to talk about would be The Year Without a Santa Claus. This is probably my favorite out of any of those specials, and I think that it's just something a little bit different. I really like the music in here again. I love Mrs. Claus's song. I think that it's just really cute and silly when she's talking about how she could be Santa. And she's just an adorable character, honestly. But I also really love I Believe in Santa Claus. When that one plays, I end up crying almost every single time I watch the movie. I think it's just a beautiful song. And then obviously we have to talk about Snow Miser and Heat Miser's songs. I think that those are definitely standouts in here as well. And they are just really the standout characters of this special. I love all the scenes that they are in this one. And then the next special that I want to talk about would be the original How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So this is not my favorite out of the Grinch adaptations, mainly because of the fact that the Grinch is not very nice to Max, and he really isn't in the Jim Carrey one either. However, I will say about both of those, I love the fact that they have horror icons that do the narration for them. And with this one, I have just watched it so many times, heard it so many times, that it is just absolutely my favorite book that I read to my son, because I can just read it so easily in that same cadence that they do for the movie. And I just have such a good time doing that. I love reading it to him. Definitely my favorite book to read him in general. But there is just something so fantastical about this one, and that's just a common quality, I think, with Dr. Seuss stories for sure. The last Christmas special that I want to talk about would be A Charlie Brown Christmas. This one is definitely my favorite of all the Peanut specials. I think that even just in the very beginning of this, I'm automatically hooked. So when Christmas time is here, comes on, and they're ice skating and the snow's coming down, I just think that's all so beautiful. And I really love the message of this one as well. So moving on, I do want to talk about some TV episodes, and they are specifically from adult cartoons. Family Guy has been on the air for so long, and they have definitely had plenty of time to have a lot of different Christmas episodes. And the best of them is definitely Road to the North Pole. I think any of the Road to episodes just have such incredible music, and that's definitely the case with this one as well. Honestly, this kind of just feels like an adult version of The Year Without a Santa Claus, but instead of Santa just being sick, Santa's just sick of it, and he doesn't want to, continue to be Santa at that point. But that's just kind of a comparison that I've made between those things. And there are a lot of really good ones in here. I also really like the one where Brian comes back. However, it just kind of makes me cry, so I don't watch that one very much. But I would say that the one that they just came out with that was kind of like a spoof on Hallmark movies, I thought that one was a lot of fun. I am someone that likes watching some of those Hallmark Christmas movies, so I thought that a lot of the jokes that they made in there were funny and pretty accurate for most of those movies. So the other cartoon that I wanted to talk about would be South Park. Again, it's another long-running show, so they've definitely had time to get some good Christmas episodes in there as well. I really love the original Mr. Hanky episode. I think that it is definitely gross and ridiculous, but I have a good time with it, and I usually end up watching it every year. And then I also really love Mr. Hankey's Christmas Classics, and that one is just an episode where all of the characters are singing different Christmas carols, and some of them are original to this episode, and they are definitely controversial, to say the least, in a lot of the lyrics and stuff. But then they're also doing some classic Christmas carols in there as well. And it doesn't feel like Christmas if I haven't heard Eric Cartman sing Oh Holy Night at least once. So, moving on, in the same vein, we're going to talk about some animated movies that I like. And the first one I want to talk about is Illuminations, The Grinch. Now, this one is my favorite Grinch adaptation. I think that it is just such a beautiful movie in so many different ways. First off, the animation is absolutely gorgeous in here. I just absolutely love the look of Whoville and all the scenery and stuff. It's just amazing. And I also really love the story here, with Cindy Lou Who trying to do things to be nice to her mom and stuff. I just think it's a beautiful little story, that's for sure. And the other animated movie that I wanted to talk about was The Polar Express. So I always loved this one when I was younger, but I just took a lot of years off of watching it for some reason, and I did rewatch it for the first time in a long time this year with my son, and it was a really good experience watching it again. And for my son, it was his first time, and he really loved it. I think it was the fast-paced music that we get in there. I think specifically the song when they're getting their hot chocolate and stuff. He just was so engaged with that one. He just does really well with music and stuff. But I like this one. I like its message about believing and all that. It does have really good, beautiful songs as well. When Christmas Comes to Town, I've always really loved that one. So, moving on to some comedies. The first one I want to talk about would be National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. So, this one I think I watched for the first time, I don't know, closer to 10 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. One of my exes, they would watch this movie every year, I think on Thanksgiving with their family, and so that was my first like foray into this one, and I just thought it was so hilarious. There are so many really great quotes in there, and it's just a really good time to watch. It's definitely a staple for me every year now. And then the other comedy that I wanted to talk about is The Night Before. I definitely love Seth Rogen comedies. I think that they're usually very funny, and that's definitely the case with this one. I love the journey that they are all on throughout their night trying to get to their party and stuff. Specifically, everything that Seth Rogen goes through is just hysterical. And just like everything that he's going through as far as becoming a father and stuff, I think that all that is really, really funny. This is definitely not a good one to have on with your kids and stuff, but it's definitely a fun watch for adults. So I do want to move on to some family comedies now. And the first one I have to talk about would be Elf. Elf is definitely my absolute favorite Christmas movie. I don't think any other one could really stack up to this one for me. This is just an all-timer performance of Will Ferrell for me. I don't think that anything that he's done before this or after this will ever be as impactful to me as this one. He's just perfect as Buddy the Elf. And I'm really sad that we have not ever gotten a sequel, and I don't know if we will now that we've lost, at least one of the important characters in here. I can't remember if more than one of them have passed now or not. But I still hold out hope that maybe eventually we'd get a second film for this one. The next one I want to talk about would be the Santa Claus. So I think that Tim Allen is absolutely great in this role. I think he's just so funny and sarcastic in here. I definitely have a good time with this one. My only issue with it is I get so mad at his ex-wife and her fiance or husband, I don't remember. But they just annoy me so much with the whole custody part of this one. but it doesn't like detract from me watching it or anything. It just does great on me having to see all that stuff, I think. But it is so good. I love the look of the North Pole and the elves and stuff. I think it's just a really fun watch. I also really adore the second movie as well. But the last one I want to talk about for family comedies would be Home Alone. And this one is such a fun watch. I love Macaulay Culkin in this role. I think that he really carried most of the movie on his back, and I think that's awesome, for a kid that was that young to be able to do that. But he is just so charismatic and awesome in this role, and I love the Wet Bandits. They're just so bumbling and idiotic, but it's such a funny watch for sure. So now we can move on to some romantic comedies, and the first one of these is The Holiday. This one I always call my New Year's Eve movie because I usually just don't end up having time to watch it at Christmas time, but I actually did this year. But I love both of the stories that we have going on here with Cameron Diaz and Kate Winslet. I love getting to see them grow as characters and fall for the right people this time. And I just have such a good time with it. And I think that Kate Winslet's story in particular is probably my favorite, just with all of the stuff with her and Arthur. I think that stuff is really adorable. And then the other one that I wanted to talk about for romantic comedies would be Love Actually. So this one is definitely an absolute must watch every Christmas, and I usually end up watching it on Christmas Day. I love that it is dealing with so many different storylines and they're all overlapping and stuff. I think that my favorite out of the stories would definitely be Colin Firth's, just because of the fact that him and the girl that he is falling in love with, they don't speak the same language. And I've always just loved seeing them learn each other's language in order to be together. I think that is so, so beautiful. And there are so many different stories in here that are just equally sweet, but that one's definitely my favorite out of them. So now let's move on to some Christmas action movies. And the first one that I want to talk about would be Die Hard. So this one is just an absolute must watch. Again, for me, it is usually the one that I watch last on Christmas night. I think that it is so much fun, and I'm not an action person at all, but this one just absolutely works for me. John McClane is such an awesome character, and I love just seeing him take out all the bad guys pretty much single-handedly. So I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It is not Christmas if I have not gotten to watch Hans Gruber fall off of the Nakatomi Plaza. So I also really do love the sequel to Die Hard, and it is a Christmas movie as well, so I could put it on here too. But the other action one that I want to talk about more would be Carry On. And this one, I can't remember if I saw it right when it came out. I don't think so, because I feel like so many people were talking about it and I hadn't watched it yet. But this one is definitely a tense watch. I like the premise of it. And I really love both Taron Egerton and Jason Bateman, so that was just a match made in heaven for me. Like, they're definitely some actors that I really try to watch a lot of their stuff. So I definitely would recommend checking this one out if you have not yet. So now we'll go ahead and just briefly touch on the horror ones as well. So Krampus would be one of my favorite Christmas horror movies of all time. I think that there is something so magical about this one. It just does feel so much like Christmas with all the different villains and stuff that we get, like Krampus's minions and stuff. I also just really like the message of this one and not taking things for granted, stuff like that. Then I also have to talk about Black Christmas 1974. I think that this one is one of the best slasher movies of all time, and just one of the best holiday horror movies of all time as well. I think that it's got a good and complex story with a very creepy villain, and it is absolutely a must-watch for me every single Christmas. So the last genre that I want to talk about would be classic Christmas movies. And the first one of these that I want to talk about is White Christmas. So I really did not start watching a lot of the classic type of movies until probably just a few years ago. And this one is one that I have to watch every single year on the first day that it snows. I have done that without fail for the last few years, I think. And it is just a really beautiful movie in so many different ways. I love all of the different musical numbers, whether that be the singing stuff or any of the dance numbers as well. It's just so amazing to see stuff like that. You don't really see movies like that at all anymore. It's just really something different with that golden age of cinema. And I happen to love it. I didn't know if I would be into all that stuff, but I really am. I think it's just amazing. I also just love the story of this one. It definitely tugs on my heartstrings as well with everything with their military background stuff. It's just an interesting watch, but a different one for a lot of people if you haven't really started watching any of those classic ones. And the other one that I wanted to talk about would be It's a Wonderful Life. So this one is kind of longer, and it's not necessarily one that I watch every single year, mainly because it's kind of a heavy watch. I end up crying a lot in this one for sure. But again, it is such a beautiful movie, and I love just seeing all of the choices that were made in his life that really show what kind of person that he is and stuff. It's just a really, really beautiful one. But like I said, it is one that definitely makes me cry a lot. So I tend to avoid the ones that make me cry like the plague usually, but I do have to throw this one on every once in a while just because it's too good of a movie to not watch. And I definitely think that if you have not tried to broaden your horizons yet and watch any of those classic type of films, whether that be these Christmas ones like I've talked about, or if you haven't looked into like some of the Universal monster movies yet or anything like that, or just classic movies in general, you need to start doing that because there's just this like really hard to define quality about all of those, and you just have to watch them to really understand it. So I want to know down in the comments, are any of these your favorite Christmas movies or specials, or are there some that I left off that you would rather put on that list? Let me know all of that down below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it. Consider subscribing if you haven't yet for more horror content. I do post 2 new videos each week. You can follow me on Instagram for updates on my channel as well as additional horror content. You can follow me on Letterboxd to see what I have been watching lately and my brief thoughts on any of those films. And if you want either of those, they are linked in my channel description for easy access for you guys. I want to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting my channel. It doesn't go unnoticed. My name is Devin. This is Carpenter Hill. Thanks for watching.